Good morning. I'm Santiago Cueto of Cueto Law Group. I'm the author of the book, Winning Lawsuits in Florida.
Diversified Game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I'm giving you, as usual, but this is special because in Florida, we have the best weather right now. But this game that you're going to get from Santiago, Esquire, Barrister, this can really save you some headaches where you hopefully don't have to get into a lawsuit because his book, best-selling, and check it out on Amazon, links will be in the description, will help you prepare for your next business venture. Even if you have a home, maybe you live out here in the country like I do in Palm Beach County, where we can shoot on our property. But if you live in the city, you really need to stay tuned because there's some things in that book and on his YouTube page that can help you. Welcome to the show, Santiago. Hope all is well today.
Thank you for having me, Kellen. I'm very happy to be here.
I want to start because home ownership insurance in Florida can be complicated, especially when the hurricanes come right before they start dropping some of us. Can you tell people about your book and how that small investment in that book can save them thousands and some people millions or multiple millions, depending on what they have?
Well, the book was meant to be a practical guide, an easy read, and basically it reveals things that most attorneys, for whatever reason, don't tell their clients about how the law works and how to best prepare and maximize your case so that you can win your case. Okay. And a lot of that has to do with, being transparent with your attorney, telling your attorney the good, the bad, and the ugly. So he or she's prepared to counter that when the other side will surely bring it up. And also to prepare your case to maximize that when it reaches a judge or a jury, they're going to side with you from the very beginning. And that's how you frame your story in a storytelling framework, which we go over in the book, so that you know how to package your story so that the judge or the jury from the very beginning, it will be inclined to side with you. You've pre-sold them, in other words, on your case.
I heard in another interview you did, you talked about basically had to repeat yourself over and over. And you said, why can't I just put it in the book? Do attorneys not give their clients this information because they want repeat business sometimes? And how many clients did it take for you to say, you know what? I'm tired of repeating myself. Let me give this to the world.
Well, I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. So I got to say, Kellen, probably thousands of clients at this point. And I don't mind answering their questions. It's because other people weren't giving them straight answers. I give them, I'm very transparent. If you have a weak case, you have certain challenges that we'll have to overcome. And maybe attorneys just want to sign up a client, tell them they have the best case in the world, wrap it up, sign them up. And then when they get to the end of the case, they've got all the billables and all the money they generated. But at the end, they tell their client, oh gosh, I guess it wasn't as solid as I thought. Well, we tell them from the very beginning, the advantages and disadvantages of proceeding with their case. We're very upfront about it. And it really seems to click with our clientele. It's refreshing for them to hear something honest.
Something honest where a lot of people, they'll say, oh, lawyers and politicians. But what I find, and I've represented clients who, they want to be on YouTube or they want to do something in Africa and they say, do you have any connections? So they become clients. But a lot of people aren't honest with their lawyers. And I say 3 people you shouldn't lie to: the IRS, your lawyer, your doctor, and let's add just your CPA.
Right.
There's no need for that. In that book, I know that you talk about that, but can you give some people some guides why not to lie, why to be upfront and let even the details that they might feel are, irrelevant? Because it's important if you have slept with this person that is about to sue you or you're about to sue, because it's going to come up, or, if you slapped them or if they're your family member. So can you talk about that transparency that you need?
Sure. Well, I'll give 2 examples, a good client and one that wasn't so good or wasn't so transparent. The first one, She was a wealthy socialite, and she was involved in a multi-million dollar case with someone, and she was involved in a petty crime that really had nothing to do with the case. But the other side is sure to bring it up just to muddy the waters and make the person look bad. But during our initial interview, the client told me that, and it really did have nothing to do with the case. But I really appreciated that they told me this, the good, the bad, and ugly, even if you don't think it's relevant, because later on, when they did in fact bring it up, we were able to prepare and counter that immediately. We shut it down. We filed what's called a motion in limine. That means excluding certain evidence at court because it's either prejudicial or is just irrelevant. And the judge granted our motion based on the preparation, which was based on the transparency of our client telling us this, wasn't very, it was a very humbling crime. The charges were dropped, eventually, but we didn't want the other side to use that against the client. And so that was a great case where they were completely transparent with us, even on things that weren't relevant to the case. Now, in the case where somebody should have been transparent, absolutely from the very beginning, because a signed document was central to this case. This person said they never signed these loan documents, swore up and down to me for 2 years. The night before the deposition, we even rehearsed it. If you're confronted with a signed document on this loan, of course, it's a forged document. Isn't that right? And the client says, oh, absolutely. So sure enough, Exhibit A in the deposition the next day, they were confronted by the opposing party. Is this your signature? And the client was hemming and hawing and saying, well, I just see a bunch of squiggly lines. And then that's when my alarm bells raised. Like, boy, what? What do you mean by squiggly lines? Either you signed it or you didn't. I thought the answer was going to be no, that's not my signature. And then I eventually asked, like, I was almost felt like I was the other side's attorney too, because I'm getting angry with my own client. Like, did you sign it or did you not? And eventually she was forced to admit that she did in fact sign it, but that she had kept it in a safe somewhere. So they don't know how they got it. Long story short, she lost her case because she was confronted with the evidence of a signed document that all along she swore to me that she never signed. And that was the end of the case.
Are you out on your maybe second, third? That's a John Grisham, scene.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I was not happy.
Yes, and for the audience who, because I always I date myself. My kids always tell me John Grisham is an author who just happens to be an attorney. So you guys can look that up. But with that, you are board certified in international law as well. Can you talk about when somebody really needs that? And I say that because a lot of people, I collect citizenships for me and my family, just in case this thing burns tomorrow, and Greenland comes and wants, to get some payback, or Venezuela or whomever, tira la puerta, tell people we're out the door. But in Mexico, I'll be there. But when does someone need a board certified international lawyer, and does that cover everywhere, and what is your forte? Because I'm sure there's certain things that you like to specialize in.
Well, we specialize in international litigation and arbitration, and that's dispute resolution when you're involved in a contract with somebody overseas, and it could be anybody in the world, a vendor or supplier contract in China, a supplier contract in Europe or in Latin America. And of course, living in South Florida, pretty much there's a lot of major international transactions just by virtue of where we live. South Florida is a very international region where there's a lot of cross-border commerce. And when you interact across borders, there tends to be disputes, just like there's disputes among people in different states. There's no different, except the geographical distance is much greater, and the laws and the rules change when you do business abroad. And that's why I come in. I'm specially trained in identifying the pitfalls and the minefields of doing business internationally. And when a dispute does arise, as they often do, and there's what's called the jurisdiction clause, or for whatever reason, the venue is here in Florida, I'm allowed to litigate that and arbitrate those claims. And that's where I come in.
Okay, and I just want to make it clear because I've had people talking on the show about, immigration, and I don't want people hitting you up and saying, "Hey, can you help me with my immigration, whether it's in this country or others?" If that is not your specialty, I do want people to hit you up and ask where you got your suits because your suit game is excellent. Classic man. What are you finding like the top things that you see entrepreneurs, since so many people online are, I'm an entrepreneur, and you're like, what's your business?
Right.
What are you finding the mistakes that are most commonly coming across your desk?
Well, very recently, and I'm sure this is widely, kind of widely known at this point, using ChatGPT as your ultimate resource you download a contract that it puts together, and guess what? This contract, it's learning based on what's out there on the internet, right? Not from lawyers. It's learning what's out there on the internet. So what comes back is usually a Frankenstein document that references, for instance, Delaware law with venue in South Florida with some other thing that mentions some Chinese law. It's ridiculous. And people sign these things. They don't read it. And that's the number one thing I would advise is read every contract, every line, and investing a nominal amount in an attorney to read it for you will go a much longer way when you find yourself in litigation and realize just a couple of pennies you would have spent, relatively speaking, instead of this long, protracted litigation that can potentially cost thousands and even millions of millions of dollars, and result in an adverse judgment against you. So who wants that? All you need to do is take the time in the very beginning and have an attorney review it for you. And that's going to save you so much time and headaches down the road later on.
Ready to dominate your industry with strategy that actually scales? At Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm, we're not just PR experts, we're licensed sports agents certified in AI and elite business consultants with over 2 decades of experience leading global projects across multiple countries. Visit cprfirm.com, that's colemanprfirm.com, and millionairex.ai. Then download the Millionaire X app, your AI-powered guide to getting out of debt, investing smarter, and building generational wealth. Coleman Public Relations and Consulting Firm. It's a family business. It's different.
With that, from Delaware to China to Florida, have you also seen they add in, and I'm a sovereign citizen, so none of this applies because I don't have an ID. I there's a lot out there, and when people say I'm sovereign, I'm going there because I haven't met a lawyer yet that has said that works. And so many more people are going to the internet saying, oh no, because my, social security. Just, can we clear the air? Have you ever seen that work in court ever?
Never. I don't know how I see some bits and pieces on the internet as I'm going through YouTube. And I'm just seeing this sovereign, when people get pulled over and they roll down their window, a crack, and they say, I'm a sovereign citizen, you can't do anything. I don't know where that comes from, but it's ridiculous.
It's especially here, Florida. We can open carry now, and the law enforcement has a job to do. They're as scared as you are. Opening a crack, you just put yourself in a position, you guys, to be
Right.
bothered. I don't care if you're in a Bugatti, and we could see that. So we've cleared the air on that. It doesn't work. I actually have had those discussions. I don't argue with people about things that can be proven. With that, and you're saying YouTube, if you focused on that on YouTube and all the other craziness, your YouTube would go to 1 million followers. How has it been being educated, doing this for 3 decades and proven? And it's like, I now have to market myself on YouTube to let people know through the BS and the truth. How has your YouTube journey been, and how hard is it to stay on the straight and narrow and not do the crazy stuff you see some attorneys doing?
Yeah, I'm not one of those TikTok lawyers doing dances and everything. I wanted to maintain professionalism, civility, and stay in my lane, which is being an international business attorney and talking about business law topics that add value to to the folks, the business owners, particularly of Florida, because that's where I practice, but it's applicable really around the world. These just basic business principles, contractual principles, and there's the nuances of Florida law. And that's where I come in to educate the public on that, any professional manner without any fluff or any, I'm not an entertainer, I'm an educator.
You've tried it your way, but you're still in debt. Or maybe you're doing okay, but want to invest smarter, grow faster. MillionaireX.ai gives you real step-by-step strategies to ditch debt or stack wealth. Stop dreaming and start planning. Visit MillionaireX.ai today. I want you to be the next millionaire next door.
And you have great reviews on Amazon. If the book hasn't been, pushed through a Baker and Taylor or an Ingram Spark, I definitely would love that. So people even can go to the library and read it for those who are just, browsing, looking for good stuff. Unfortunately, libraries don't buy from Amazon yet, unless you do some big campaign, and it usually takes, more work than just the other way. But have you heard any great testimonies outside of the Amazon and online, like where people say, you've saved my house, you've saved, my family, anything like that?
I have, in terms of reading contracts, especially when they find buried in the back of this is one of the main things I talked about in just a basic review of a contract. Flip through the back page, the back 2 pages of your contract, any contract, and you're going to find what's called a jurisdiction and venue clause. And that dictates if there is a dispute, where it's going to be resolved. And oftentimes it's not in Florida. It's in Wyoming, it's in Delaware, it's in New York, or it's California. It's far, far, far away from your home turf here in Florida. So I would change that jurisdiction. So instead of saying, Delaware law shall apply, any dispute shall be resolved in Delaware, you can ask the party, especially at the beginning of an agreement where relations are good, tell them, hey, can we make this in Florida, especially now in January? It's probably a good place to be if there's a dispute. And you'd be surprised how many times people will agree to change that venue and jurisdiction clause to Florida versus New York, California, sometimes internationally. And people don't realize that until a dispute arises. The other side points to the contract that they sign and says, hey, dude, you agreed to jurisdiction in Delaware. You agreed to settle this case in California to resolve it. And they're blindsided by that. Guess what? Now they have to hire attorneys in Delaware. They have to travel to Delaware for depositions, attend trial in Delaware. And that adds thousands of dollars on top of your case in unnecessary expenses, not to mention the time constraints.
Delaware, since you said it a few times, can you educate the people on, and this is so personal. I've had so many clients come and they say, here in Florida, they'll say, hey, I want to get into government contracting. I saw you had some. Can you, get us ready? And I say, go to your local government. They can get you ready for free. But if you really want to know and you look and they say, oh, I'm registered in Delaware or Wyoming or wherever. And it's like, you're not going to be qualified for what you want because your business is there. It's not here.
That's right.
And can you talk about those, mistakes people get where they think they haven't even made, $10 and they're like, oh, I'm going to be tax free. Can you talk about that and maybe some of the miscommunication that they got on TikTok about opening your business in those states?
Well, Florida is a fantastic place to do business. It's one of the freest places to do business. Filing an LLC, a corporation, you can do that in a couple of minutes. And we do have there's ways that you can shield, and a lot of people don't want their names to be on public records. Where Delaware, the beneficial owner is not revealed on the public records. We can do that in Florida and just put an LLC as a managing member of whatever. You can structure it so that at least on SumBiz, which is a depository and registration for corporations and LLCs, that initially your name won't show up because there's some other entity owning it. But eventually, if somebody's motivated enough, they can find out who owns that company. But that's a very good place to start to have the same kind of, if you want to call it secrecy or privacy, that Delaware offers. You just need to structure it properly here in Florida.
And with proper structuring, this is for my passport. not the passport bros, but the crypto bros who didn't listen in 2014 and 16 and did what was necessary, who say, well, I'm going to go to Puerto Rico and be with, the Paul brothers, and I don't have to claim. Do you handle anything like that for folks who, maybe played in the gray area, or need help with the international piece? If they come to you and say, hey, this is my problem, I have all this crypto, I haven't claimed it in years, my CPA doesn't know this, my wife doesn't know this, I don't want to go to jail. Is that something that you even like to touch upon?
Well, we do work with specific tax strategists who can help with that. But I will say, you can be doing business on the moon, and if you're making a profit, you're generating income, you owe the IRS some level of money. There's no such thing as moving to Puerto Rico and you don't owe any taxes. You do, right? Wherever you are producing income, you as a U.S. citizen, you owe taxes to the government. Okay, that's a big misconception that if you move abroad, you don't. You do. You always will, unless you renounce your citizenship, and that's a big process that people aren't willing to go through, right? Because you lose also a lot of advantages. So I will say this. There's ways to legally minimize your taxes, but you can never avoid them. Clients come to me and want to set up shop in the Cook Islands or something to avoid taxes. There's no such thing. You can minimize them and in some cases offset them, but there's always something that you'll need to pay at the end of the day. You can keep it offshore for a while, but if you want to repatriate the profits, you're going to be taxed on it.
Yeah. And, it's funny. And I've interviewed all the YouTubers, Nomad Capitalist, Wandering Investor, some of those people who do give up their citizenship just to collect other citizenships that usually aren't as valuable. And I think for the American citizenship, it's in your later years when maybe you're not making as much as you were in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, and you need help. Not every country is willing to, do what America does. So with that, I just want to put that out there. You guys be careful if you say, I'm just going to renounce. Also be careful and tell me if you see this. Somebody might make the first million, or maybe they make the first 5 million, and they want the same tax breaks of a Trump, of a Bezos. How often do you see that? I always chuckle when people say, I want what Bezos has. And I said, I do too, but I don't make that type of money yet. God willing, if I can handle it. If I can't handle it, don't give it to me, because
those are that's a wholly an entirely different ballgame. Would they get loans against their shares in stock? So they're not technically, they're not generating income. They're getting loans against these stocks with unrealized gains. They haven't sold any stock in the cases that people are usually talk about. Well, Bezos doesn't pay any taxes. Well, not yet. Every time he does sell his shares, of course he pays his taxes. But you can get at that level, you get loans from banks and you use your stock as collateral. And therefore, you never really realize a gain until, of course, you sell a share. But that's how they do it at the large scale. You may have heard Elon Musk say, I'm not very liquid. And that could be very true, because all his wealth is tied onto his various stock holdings.
Yeah, and at his level, yeah, good. Good, because who knows who's coming after you next. We need you, Santiago, at some of these crypto and young networking things, because I can't tell you how many 22-year-olds have given me advice while living with their parents sometimes, and how I should be borrowing against this and borrow against that. And I'm like, I'm old, man. I'm colonoscopy age, but I'm still good. And you're telling me when I should be doing it's just $60,000 if they're selling something. And how do you feel about this? Entrepreneurship, everybody is rich, at least online. You've seen them come, you've seen them go. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because you got so much more material you could write and do.
Oh yeah, like the other day it was interesting. The hustle culture is real. So we had a client the other day that wanted to pay for a consult in Bitcoin, and right away I asked my intake person, like, was this a young tech bro? And he's like, yeah, it sounded like it. I'm like, if he can't pay for a consult in cash and he's got to resort to crypto, tell the guy, like, that's not how the real world works. You don't pay for consults, which are, it's a nominal amount in Bitcoin. That's a huge red flag to me. Now it creates a problem for me. How am I going to, turn over that and cash it out and make it real? I don't want to go through the administrative headache of that. So they think that the whole world is kind of bend to whatever they need just because they have some Bitcoin. And that's not how the world works, at least not yet. There's still some ways to go before any cryptocurrency becomes a normal way to transact business. But don't call your attorney up offering to pay, a couple $100 in crypto. That's not a good way to start.
Well, and it'd be nice if they had so much and they say, hey, we're going to give you 1 Bitcoin, but they're going to parcel it and give you just a piece.
Yeah.
And again, there are countries, El Salvador is and there's some things that are said, hey, this is good, this is bad. The rest of the world is doing mobile money crazy. And it's sometimes it's embarrassing because you can't even catch a bus in London with your family if you don't have digital,
true.
some type of mobile money on your wallet. I've been embarrassed a few years ago, but no, that's good stuff to let people know. What is a community give back that you're doing or that you would like to do in the future?
Well, what I'm doing now is, we spend, a good 5 to 10 hours a week producing these videos to educate the public. And I wanted them to know whether they hire me or not, there's a way of doing things. And to the extent I can give my 30 years of advice and wisdom to make their life easier without even having to contact an attorney, that's very fulfilling to me, helping people, succeed in this country and in this state.
Nice, nice. Is there any personal, program you could maybe see in the future that you're doing or where people can catch you and say, hey, I need a mentor. I want to do, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 3 years. It's a struggle. I'm making 25,000. I had a buddy in Lubbock, Texas tell me that at his house. And I'm like, 5,000, we might, got to find something else for you to do. But is there anything like that people can, reach out? Do you even have the time?
I do have the time. Thankfully, I have a great team of people that we all work together on fulfilling my mission and educating the public on and helping them succeed with having better knowledge of the law, particularly business law, and resolving disputes. Because the more successful you get, it's likely that you'll come across a dispute, and that's completely normal. And it's okay. It's okay if you're being sued or if you need to leverage the power of the law to protect your rights. That's completely okay, and it's encouraged. Okay, particularly when you start making a lot of money, that's when these disputes arise, particularly between partners. And we see those all the time, particularly since COVID. A lot of people's businesses have taken off since 2020, and increasingly, as the amount of money increases and the profits are generated, that's when the disputes arise. And so that's when we come in and try to resolve it before it ever gets to arbitration or litigation. We try to resolve that through our pre-litigation protocol, which is basically trying to resolve it, whether with mediation or some kind of non-court procedure, that we can allow them to focus on their business rather than spending their time in court and headaches for years and years trying to resolve a dispute that could have been resolved much, much earlier.
Does it ever require you to go to another country for whatever, whether it's a meeting or, you have to fly for the client? Does that, I'm trying to make this like a TV show, like Scandal for Law, do you make it sexy for the lawyers to say, oh, I want to travel. So yeah, I want to get that certification. Does it ever require that?
No, it doesn't require a lot of travel, particularly these days. Earlier in my career, it certainly did. Even before, not that long ago, before Zoom, travel was part of the job. But now, as I'm speaking to you through Zoom, it's become really not as necessary, although there's nothing is ever going to replace face-to-face interactions, particularly with forging relationships with your business partners. That I'll always encourage. And if you can meet them on the other side of the world at least once, I would encourage that, because I think analog is never going, face-to-face meetings should never go out of style, and I don't think they ever will. There's a time and place for digital communications, such as Zoom, but there's no replacement for real face-to-face meetings. Nothing can replace that. So I would encourage, whenever possible, to do that.
And this may be the last question, and it's a question for potential clients as well as you entrepreneurs out there who might be attorneys, you might be consultants, but how do you deal with clients? They might pay you quickly, retainer is always paid, but they don't listen. How do you deal with those people?
Well, I've learned to be pretty firm, and they've learned to, frankly, listen to me. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years, and I've met all kind of personalities. But at the end of the day, when you talk with wisdom and confidence, they'll always respect you, especially those who think they can just chat GPT their way out of things, or they'll find something online and come back to me the next day. Well, Santiago, I found this, and it contradicts what you told me yesterday. And of course, I'll walk them through why that's ChatGPT makes things up. Even today, it's still making up, and it looks like perfect law. The citations are elegantly written. It looks perfect. But guess what? It's made up. And even attorneys are getting in trouble for relying on these citations because they look so real, Kellen. ChatGPT has perfected what a good citation will look like. So I'll walk these clients through of why not to rely on that and why they should listen to me. I've been doing this for 30 years with real world, battle tested, in the trenches experience. And that almost always resonates with them. And at the end of the day, if they don't listen, we simply withdraw from the case, which I've had to do very rarely. But if they don't listen to me, we will withdraw, and we'll happily refer them to another attorney. But it's important that they respect our wisdom and our knowledge and our experience. And if they're not willing to listen or strategize on the case, then we'll just simply say, hey, listen, this is not a good fit anymore. And maybe you should find another attorney.
Have you found the clients, especially the younger ones, try to say, oh, actually, you missed this, or teach you about their case because of AI?
Yes, actually, just yesterday, one of the attorneys and I got an email from a client. We submitted a motion to the client for their review, and you can see ChatGPT font, and you know how it structures things in bullet lists and things.
And masses.
I'm like, we know where this came from. And of course, we talked to the client like, look, we've got it. How we make the sausage, as they say, in the back of the factory, just leave it to us. Trust us. And this is a good client. He's just trying to help. But it's also important us to push back and say, listen, we got this. We've got you. We've been handling your case for 2 or 3 years now. We have your complete trust. Just thanks for the help. But we got it.
What's crazy about it, because, AI geniuses is what I'm calling them.
Right.
They think they can replace certain professions, but you're only as good as your prompt. I'm certified in various AIs, and we've been using it for over 8 years, but you're only as good as your prompt. So
Right.
yes, chat, like you said, can give you the general, but if it doesn't know, again, that you actually had an affair with this person and you don't want your wife to know, and we have to, go around that. So it's amazing. You guys, this is why you guys got to get the book. Again, the links are in the description. Any last words for the people?
Read your contracts. Just number one rule, read your contracts. It's going to save you so much time and headaches down the road if you simply flip through the pages, including the boilerplate language in the back. I discussed earlier the jurisdiction clause. Make sure it's in Florida for all you Florida residents. Florida's a great state. For you, those not from Florida, consider it to do business. And that's probably the biggest piece of wisdom I can impart. And it's the easiest. So easy to do. And it just saves so much time and headaches down the road by just simply doing that.
You guys have gotten the game. Now it's up to you. I know most of you are listeners, but please go to the YouTube and go give it some love. I'd love wherever you experience this to, have a comment. You can have a like, but most importantly, I need you to share this game with someone. This could really change somebody's life. You guys, be blessed.
Hello everyone. Come along with London and Sydney as they show you around the vibrant country of Cameroon. We explore the heart of Africa through the eyes of London and Sydney. Two explorers who journey across the great city of Yaoundé, exploring its rich culture, vibrant market squares, cultural heritage, and wildlife. With giggles and excitement, London and Sydney explore Cameroon takes you on a fun adventure, providing insight into the country's
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stretch the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.